Hello, my name is Matthew David Brozik, and my favorite thing is Glengarry Glen Ross.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones. It is Sunday, November 6th, 2022. In a couple hours, I'll be sitting down with Matthew David Brozik to interview him about his new book, Otter Space, and his favorite things. But in order to get this episode out before midnight, I thought I would record my intro first. So I don't know what Matthew and I will have talked about. What a week it's been. Last Sunday, after I published my episode with Eden, I went to see How Did This Get Made Live. I talked about that a lot in the upfront last week, that it was How Did This Get Live was back at the Chicago Theater, that I had seen Rishi Case Hirway and Jenny Owens Young's earlier in the week at Sleeping Village, the tote bag, the joke, my reverse merching to celebrity podcasters and straight up celebrities. And when Jocelyn and I went to How Did This Get Made, we were in the third row, even with Jason Mantzoukas, and throughout the show, he talked to me a few times and ended the show by asking me the name of my podcast and recommending it to everyone who was left in the Chicago Theater as the night wound down. And I've spent the whole week recovering from that. It was really exciting. And I don't know if he actually got the tote bag or not. I guess it means enough to me that he knows it exists and probably saw a picture from Rishi. I did get it on stage thanks to my friend Jocelyn. When you listen to the Morbius episode, maybe you'll hear a little bit of that interaction, but I doubt it. You might hear my question. I think my question will probably make the episode, but that's about it. But it was just really cool. You know, I've been a big fan of How Did This Get Made for many years now, 5 or 6 years. I just have a really clear memory of being at a happy hour after a leadership retreat at a previous employer before I was laid off, which would have made me, I think, 39 or 40 at the time. It's such a weird, clear memory explaining How Did This Get Made and who Jason Mantzoukas was and what they knew him from, which at the time was mostly the League. Anyway, that happened. That was huge. I finally got the results of my ADHD evaluation, which I will take to the rest of my medical team and see what we can do with it. Essentially, I would have ADHD ! If I hadn't had the last 2 years of cancer and the sarcoidosis diagnosis, because they can never separate out the impact of sarcoidosis on my brain from my current cognitive functioning. But essentially, all signs point to ADHD except for the 4 MRIs of my brain that point to sarcoidosis. So hopefully I will get to I'll start working specifically on some ADHD interventions and maybe try some medication. But it was frustrating. It's such a good professional that I worked with to get this evaluation, but I am very frustrated that I continue to be someone who is considered a complex patient with a complex medical history when I'm like, no, I was really good until I was like 39. And then, it's just been a hard few years, but that doesn't mean it's complex forever, but it kind of does. So that's just frustrating, hard to come to terms with. He also recommended that I find a health psychologist, somewhere to start working through the trauma of the cancer diagnosis, even though it was stage 1 and it was an easy, quote unquote, easy treatment, that I still clearly have a lot of anxiety left over from as I come out of this year and a half of cancer treatment. I am going to try and go vote. Midterms are on Tuesday. So I have gone through all of the election mailers in my mailbox and found some of the most useful ones, made some notes on it, and I'm going to go vote in between recording this and then talking to Matthew later this afternoon. It was spring forward, fall back. Most of the clocks in my house have changed. Some have not. Some are now 3 hours off. I don't know how they even got 2 hours off. It's just been, what a huge week. It's just been a big week, but also feels kind of like nothing has happened. It is finally fall weather in Chicago. Climate change has kept it a very warm fall. We had beautiful colors because of it, but 70 degrees in November was unsettling. So the incredible winds and rains we got this weekend felt a little bit more appropriate to the season. I don't know. With that, I am buying myself another t-shirt quilt because I am also recovering from bronchitis this week. But as part of that, they put me on steroids. And so I suddenly have a lot of energy that I haven't had in months. And so I tackled my out of control shelves and dug out 16 t-shirts to turn into a t-shirt quilt, which opens up room for more appropriate clothing that I need to wear this winter. So I'm sending off t-shirts to Memory Stitch again. And I don't know. I guess it's not a nothing happened week. It's a lot of things happen. With that, I hope that you get out and vote, that you're voting for Democrats, that you're voting in support of access to healthcare, workers' rights, unions, bodily autonomy, access to voting, access to the social safety net, increased taxes, wash your hands, wear your mask, get your booster, get your flu shot, and keep enjoying your favorite things. Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is the podcast where we learn about people's favorite things and get recommendations without using an algorithm. Today, I am talking with Matthew David Brozik. Matthew and I have been online friends now for a very long time and have never actually spoken to each other. But we've got one friend in common. I think only one. That's how we know each other. But Matthew, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm doing great, and I just want to mention that this is my first time as a podcast guest.
What?
And yeah, I know. Can you believe that? With a voice like this,
to me,
right?
Truly, with a voice like this, with a
voice like this, and
microphone.
Exactly. The microphone belongs to my wife. I had to dig it out of a closet, but where I put it, actually, I put it in the closet, so I was the only one who knew where it was.
Oh,
but and being very interesting, which
I will come to find out.
Right. Well, exactly. That's a surprise.
I know that you are interesting on Facebook. And I know that you have stayed friends with Ronnie for longer than anyone should. So I suspect you're funny and interesting.
I am, as is Ronnie. And we'll talk about Ronnie in a minute because that's really, he's looking forward to that.
Yes.
It's not going to be interesting to anybody else in the world but our mutual friend. So I just wanted to say, because I've never been on a podcast and I assume this is going to be a nerve-wracking experience, I poured myself a cocktail.
Wonderful.
As one does. And I made sure to put in a generous amount of ice, both so that I don't fall asleep in 20 minutes, and so that you will hear the tinkling of ice cubes. Right, but now I'm afraid might not be the word, concerned that the tinkling won't be sufficient. So please, would you add some ice tinkling in post?
I will.
Just
if I can.
make sure, because that's the kind of podcast guest I want people to think of me as. That sounds more like applause.
That was applause.
That was applause.
I have cheering, clapping, laughing.
But no
drum
ice
rolls.
tinkling?
No ice tinkling.
All right. Well.
So I'll see what I can find.
Okay, yeah. We'll
I'll
send you something. Yeah, I'll send you something if need be.
If you could just send me a clean sample
yes,
of an ice tinkle.
Actual ice tinkle. Yes, I will. The last time I sent someone tinkle, the feds showed up at my Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about so here's the other reason that I was nervous. I'm not actually, but as your audience knows probably better than I do, this is a show about favorites, and the conceit is brilliant. It's somewhat reactionary to algorithms,
yes.
And the idea is an interesting and or available person comes on and recommends or suggests things that they like, and I sent you an initial list of things that I like. And I was then embarrassed by my list because I realized that so many of the things that I like are things that people already know about. And I felt, wow, this is going to be awful if I just recommend things to people like, do you like Ghostbusters? Have you ever heard of that? Because or like,
it's an independent film from the 80s.
Right.
You would really say that New York is a character.
Exactly.
In the movie.
Exactly. Right. There are 4, 5, 6 main characters, but also Manhattan.
Yes.
Is as much of a character in Ghostbusters as it is in such other films as, say, Manhattan. But just without the lechery. But so I started thinking about things that I like, and I realized I really like a lot of things that everybody also likes. And I thought, wow, what a terrific guest I would be if I just start recommending things like Star Wars.
The Avengers.
Right, exactly.
Star Wars.
Do you like Spider-Man?
Have you ever heard of Disney?
Exactly. And then, because I have problems and everything is a joke to me, I started thinking, what if I came on and really committed to this bit where I just recommended things like money or potato chips. And I just sincerely suggested, hey, have you heard of sleeping?
Yeah.
It's amazing. At the end of each day.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I could straight up talk to you for an hour about sleeping because what sheets are you using these days?
I think they're all cotton, maybe bamboo. Okay. We have a wide variety. We have 8 pillows. There's 2 of us.
Yeah.
The missus and I. We have 8 pillows, so 8 pillowcases because we fancy like that.
Are they down or are they acrylic? Like are they memory foam?
I think we have one of everything.
Okay.
Like we definitely have, and this isn't necessarily a recommendation, but I will say we recently bought.
Beyond.
No, we bought a Helix mattress.
Oh,
and
okay.
I assume I'm allowed to name names because
yes.
we're finding favorites, and I do like it very much. I don't know that I go out of my way to recommend it because I don't sleep on that many different mattresses, especially now that I'm married. So pretty much stick to the one that we have.
Yep.
But we did upgrade recently from a spring mattress to whatever this other kind is considered. Just no springs.
I just got I have a totally Instagram bed now. So I have the Thuma bed frame,
right,
which I am obsessed with. It's the one that is essentially Lincoln Logs, but it's Japanese engineering, adult Tinker Toys. There's 2 screws in the whole thing.
Right.
It's just well-fitted joints. Beautiful. Right. I have that. I have the Big Fig mattress, which is specifically a mattress for heavier people. I am obsessed with sheets from a company called Comfy, Comphy. They make sheets for spas. So it's meant to be like massage tables. They're meant to be washed all the time. And every time you wash them, they get softer.
Do you have a guest bedroom?
I do.
Can I visit?
You may.
Is it as fancy? Like, I realize it's not going to be as nice.
It's not as nice, but they are quality sheets. I upgraded to like a bamboo a bamboo sheet for that. And then I've got a really nice t-shirt quilt with like fleece on one side and t-shirts, which I think is a perfect quilt.
That sounds terrific. Yeah, we don't have anything. This might be why I don't sleep very well.
Yeah.
That and the, worrying about being interesting on a podcast.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, even if you'd come to me with sleep and potato chips, I have a potato chip I tried last night. I think I threw the bag away. But it's Lay's. And
Okay.
it is the shape of a Chex, but it is big. It's
so
like
square. It's the shape of a chip.
Square and it's a pillow.
Like a pillow. Gotcha.
A potato chip. So it's like a potato chip poof. It's like only the ridges woven together into a salty poof. It is amazing.
Anyway, yeah. So it sounds like you live a very pillow-rich life.
Pillow-rich life, snack-rich life, a lot of candy. I do what I can.
Do you like candy? And have you heard of Halloween?
Yes. Do I have a whole second podcast called Candy Chat Chicago? Yes.
Oh, that's right. You know what? And Ronnie, who we still have not explained to anyone,
right.
Mentioned that to me when I told him. So as soon as you invited me, I immediately then emailed Ronnie. And you know what? Let's not tell anybody who Ronnie is. Let's just go and just let them try to figure it out. And I said, oh, so Leah asked me to be on her podcast, and I'm really excited. And he said, which one? And I was like, okay, you lost me. And he said, I assume it's the Finding Favorites, unless it's the candy one. So that's how I immediately knew that you had a second podcast. I mean, most people, and I don't know if you know this, but I did some research. Most people don't even have one podcast.
Right.
Although we're getting to that point where, I guess your typical person does have one.
Your typical person has a podcast that stops at 6 episodes.
Let's see. What is this? What number is this? 7?
7.
Okay. That's good.
Number 7. 137. Something like that.
That's good.
In the range. Yeah.
That is impressive. I am impressed.
Yeah.
Color me impressed.
So Matthew, you have a book just launched.
I do.
Otter Space.
Yes. I shouldn't talk over you.
It's fine. I edit.
I mean, you're pushing my book, and I'm speaking over you.
So you've just launched Otter Space, and it is an upper grade sci-fi adventure. Middle grade. Middle grade. It's different than YA.
It is, and maybe I shouldn't confess that I'm fairly new to this age range. As far as writing, I'm not new to the actual age range because I am in my late 40s, so I passed through these ages.
You survived them.
I did. But I used to, and still do, write for adults. I don't write adult literature, but I didn't write for the younger set, as we might say. But a good friend of mine who does write for middle grade students twisted my arm and got me to start writing for younger readers. And so I learned very quickly what the gradations are. There's and YA is probably what most people are most familiar with, because the A in YA obviously is adult, and young adult novels are fairly popular with adult readers as well. Like, and they tend to be there tends to be at least one serious theme, whether it be death or disease or sexuality. And I have no interest in any of those.
Fair.
I have no interest in death or dying or sexuality. Just in my actual life, not just reading about them. So I aimed a little lower. Not in terms of quality, clearly. I mean, well, not clearly, but yeah. But in terms of grade and reading level, not coincidentally, because my daughter is now 10, and I wrote a first children's novel about 2 years ago, and she was my main audience. So that was solidly middle grade, which is a little younger than YA, and tends to be defined by not having anything serious, not having any adult themes.
Having a dark theme or heavy life lesson.
But they are chapter books that typically are geared toward the middle grade set. So figure middle school or like 5th grade to 7th grade, and then upper middle grade would be just shift that up 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
And the rule of thumb, which again I learned a couple of years ago, is that younger readers tend to prefer their protagonists about a year older than they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't necessarily set out to write an upper middle grade novel with Otter Space. I think I first decided the age of the protagonist, and he is a 13-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I, at this point, as we sit here and I reminisce about the past couple of years of writing this book, I don't remember why I decided that he would be 13, but it seemed that I needed him to be in a certain place at a certain time. And the certain place is outer space, on a spaceship.
In time for his bar mitzvah.
Exactly, right. Yes, that's what's missing. That'll be in the sequel.
Yes.
God willing. And so then once I determined that he was going to be 13, then I realized, okay, this is firmly upper middle grade. So I'm saying 9 to 13 is the audience,
Mm-hmm.
but most of my all of my first readers are adults. They're my friends, including Ronnie.
Yes.
The aforementioned and soon to be mentioned again many times, Ronnie,
yes.
who has read the book at least twice. And so my readers have been, again, adults, but and then my daughter read a proof, and she stayed up reading it. She didn't originally find it very interesting in manuscript form, but then I got a proof of the book, asked her to read it. It felt like a book. That may have made the difference.
Yeah.
Just the size. Instead of reading a manuscript on 8.5 by 11, cheap white paper, she was holding a paperback, and I was very flattered when early the next morning she burst into my bedroom, which we were talking about earlier, you and I, Leah. Your audience will recall. There's a bed with sheets, and she burst into the room, 8 pillows, and she burst into the room and she said, "Dad, your book is great." And I said, "Get out of my room. I'm trying to sleep." and I said, "No, thank you. That's really wonderful. That means so much to me." I said, "Did you read the whole thing?" She said, I couldn't put it down. I read the whole thing. I stayed up and I read it, and I didn't even want to put it down to go to the bathroom. And I said, being a good parent, I said, "Well, you should put a book down and go to the bathroom if you need to." And she said, "Oh, I went to the bathroom. I just took the book with me."
That is the ultimate compliment.
It is. It really is. And then I said, "Okay, you hold on to that copy and please just don't put that on a shelf.
Don't put it back on the communal book.
Don't put it back on, exactly. Keep that off the coffee table in the living room." Anyway, yes. So Otter Space is an upper middle grade sci-fi book. It's humorous. It is very much in the general Star Trek vein, in that all of the action, or most of the action, takes place on a spaceship. And we were joking earlier about the New York City being as much of a character, and as any Star Trek fan knows, the Starship Enterprise or other ships are a character.
Right.
And Otter Space takes it a little further, in that the ship, called the Amity, because the powers that be didn't want to call it the Starship Friendship, because that would sound ridiculous. So they called it the Starship Amity, has a personality. It has an artificial intelligence on board named Manny. It's an acronym, MANI, Male Automated Networked Interface. And Manny is very much a character with a personality and a problem. Manny is very sad. So that was really the genesis of this book. I was thinking about classic science fiction adventures like Star Trek, like Star Wars, like Battlestar Galactica, like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I made a list of what made each of them unique. What was the driving force between, of each of them? And they were all slightly different. And I realized that there was a sort of an opening for a different approach, which is, what if a crew were on a spaceship and the ship itself were their biggest problem? And that led me to the idea of an artificial intelligence that just doesn't want to do its job anymore. And I was thinking, why would that be? And I don't want to give anything away, and I'm not going to, but essentially just before the opening of the book, there's a catastrophe that really depresses the AI on the ship, and that leads to, well, I want to say hilarity ensues, hilarity and also other things. And that's the premise of the book. And I decided to write it.
It's an AI that has a different goals than Hal from 2001.
Yes. In fact, again, without going into too much detail, you might even say completely different goal, because Hal's entire goal was self-preservation.
Right.
And this is an AI that basically has given up and doesn't want to go on. He has suffered a loss.
Yeah.
That only he really feels. He feels it in a way that none of the humans on board feel, and he just doesn't want to go on. And the only one who really connects with him is the main character, Jeremy, who goes by his nickname Germ, which is a bit ironic because his mother is the doctor on the ship. And just circling back to Star Trek, I had an immediate reservation, of course, because the kid on Star Trek The Next Generation, Wesley Crusher, played by Will Wheaton, was the female ship doctor's son. And that's the exact scenario that we have here. And I wondered, hey, is that going to be too derivative? And then ultimately I said, you know what, it's fine. And chances are most 9 to 13-year-old readers these days were not watching Star Trek The Next Generation, and just won't make the Wesley Crusher connection.
And if their parents read it and catch a nod to it, great.
Right, exactly.
Then
and
it's
I
something
think,
they recognize.
And in fact, there are plenty of, I don't want to say Easter eggs, but there are plenty of nods to Star Trek and other classic sci-fi properties in there. There's a very central key piece of equipment on board the Amity called a spectrometer. And it's a mass spectrometer, and one of the problems is that they haven't worked out all the Kirks in the mass spectrometer yet. So there's a great deal of wordplay that it's okay if the primary audience isn't going to get, but spell check certainly didn't get the jokes.
Right.
But the adults will, and I encourage children of all ages, adults of all ages to read. Well, maybe not children of all ages, but anyone 8, 9 and up. I think we'll get a real kick out of it. And I loved writing it. I'm extraordinarily proud of the book. I'm excited. I really hope people get to read it. I hope they just do and love it as much as I do.
Amazing. So it is available now. People can order it on Amazon. It is also available on Kindle, but they should order the print copy. Oh,
absolutely. I don't love ebooks, and I'm very glad that Amazon's publishing platform allows now paperback books. And a lot of work went into the book, not just writing it, but the cover design, the interior was designed. Yes. It's a beautiful little book. What
chapter headings did you settle on?
Ronnie
and I were talking
about numbers.
That last night.
Yes. So this was my daughter's actual contribution to the book. I had originally written them out as words, chapter 1, chapter 2, all the way to chapter 20, and hadn't given that a lot of thought, even though with each manuscript that I write, I do think about what kind of chapter headings I want. Sometimes sometimes they'll be actual names of chapters. Sometimes it's just numbers. And this time I had written it out, and I don't think I really thought about it until I got the first proof and thought, this is an opportunity to maybe marry the chapter headings a little bit more to the substance, especially because it was in a nicer font. And I realized there's nothing special about just writing out chapter 1, chapter 20. So I noodled around, and I asked my daughter, and I asked Ronnie and some other friends, and we had almost settled on spelling out the word chapter and writing the number in numerals. And then my daughter, an actual certified genius, I certified her. I'm certified as a genius certifier. It's a kind of a loop, but she said, well, why not just the numbers? And it was like this giant embarrassing light bulb went off over my head. And I was like, yeah, that is the way to go.
Works.
So we did, but
did you do 0, 1,
zero,
2?
zero,
Okay.
exactly. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Because, to exactly right. To really emphasize that binary
Spaceship.
computer. Yeah. And speaking of binary, there was a moment where I very, very briefly considered putting the numbers in binary, just zeros and ones. And then I realized that's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
So, I stopped. That probably would have been off-putting.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place.
Wouldn't have fit. Yeah.
Right.
Binary
No,
wasn't
Roman
gonna
numerals,
fit.
not at all. Yeah. Actually, Roman numerals would be hilarious. Just completely, completely anachronistic. Just absurd.
Yeah. I inexplicably have, that song, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wheels on a big rig. And then it's like count by twos. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Leah, I do
No?
not, no.
So there's a verse of that song that's
Is
like,
this Pearl Jam?
it's Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Covered also by the Beatles.
Pearl Jam covered by the Beatles. I don't, that's
yeah.
not the way it usually goes, but okay.
But it was interesting. And there's one verse of it that's like Roman numerals. How many wheels on a big rig? I, V, 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 I, V, I, V, I, X, X, X. Like, and that is how I can count to 18 in Roman numerals.
I'm going to have to look up that song. If you can,
Beatles.
right, Beatles. How's that spelled? B-E-A-T. It's wordplay, right? B-E-A-T.
B-E-E-D-L-E. The Beatles.
The Oneaters, right?
Yeah.
I'll have to look up that song. See if you can find it and make it like the tag to this this episode.
So Otter Space available now. People can find out more information on imdb.name.
Right. Don't go to imdb.com because I've never been in a movie.
Yet.
Right. But with a voice like this. But yes, so imdb.name, my own personal, and spend some time there. Noodle around. There's all sorts of short stories, short humor pieces. No videos of cats. I don't roll like that.
Early when we met, you had published a book called Taking Ivy Seriously, which you no longer make available.
Yes.
Why?
Because
copyright problem?
No. No, it's entirely.
The book is about copyright.
You know what? I'd forgotten about that. Yes,
it is honestly
that's an excellent point.
My basic understanding of copyright infringement, patent law comes from that book.
From that book. Huh.
In a previous life, you were a copyright attorney, right?
Yes, I practiced for a decade and decided to then become a copywriter.
Yes.
Which is very confusing to people who meet me. And it's why I just don't like meeting people anymore, because I have to explain, because if they've heard even a little bit about me, then we're already in too deep. They say, so you used to be a lawyer and you did copyright law and now you're a copywriter, and what's the difference? And I say, you know who looks really interesting? That guy over there. And then when they look, I run.
Yeah.
Usually toward the bar. But yes, so I published a novella. It was the first thing that I published. It was the first longer piece of fiction that I wrote, longer than any short story, but not quite novel length. And I like it very much. And it was something I labored on for about 10 years. And I had started when I was in law school. And I think I never quite cracked it. I never quite solved it. And even though I released it, I reached a point, or there came a time when it was no longer being purchased. And I think I released it maybe 7-8 years ago. I honestly don't even remember at this point. It may be even longer than that. Maybe it was 10 years ago. But as with most things, it had a shelf life. And once it reached the point that whoever was going to buy it had bought it, I started thinking, this is not necessarily what I want to be representing me anymore, because I had written more and better and longer things, and it bugged me a little bit that it wasn't quite as long as maybe it could or should have been. And I just figured, you know what, I can, because it was self-published, I can just sort of take it down. Mm-hmm. And I did. And that's not to say that I wouldn't put it back at some point, but it just felt like, okay, you know what? I'm better represented by everything that I've written and released since then. Mm-hmm. And there have been a few things. I think I've got 5 or 6 books available, and one of which is a novella intentionally, Danger with a Hard G. Sometimes I forget.
Harrison Bennett novella.
Yes, a Harrison Bennett novella. The main character is Harrison Danger Bennett, hence the Danger with a Hard G. Something else, another thing I had a hell of a great time writing. Yeah. And but that was intentionally a novella. I just wanted to write a short, tight, sort of comic, hard-boiled mystery novel, and I did. And there was never a battle for page length or word count. And I never felt like, oh, this is coming in too short. If anything, I tried very hard to keep it to novella length, just sort of get in and get out, make the jokes, hit those beats, and very proud of that. I'm very proud of everything that I've released, but something about Ivy, I just figured, you know what, maybe I'd like to not take it back. If given the opportunity, I wouldn't go to people's homes and delete it off their Kindle.
Right.
And that one, in fact, I only released as an ebook. Yeah. There is no paperback version of that. So I would have to break into people's homes and access their devices. And that's time consuming, honestly.
It is. But it gives you a chance to travel the country, travel the world.
The world. People. Right. Yeah. Exactly. But
according to my inbox that I apparently never clean out, Taking Ivy Seriously was released on September 5th, 2013.
Okay, so 50 years ago. Yeah.
50 years ago, yep.
Yeah. What did you say, 2013?
2013. Labor Day weekend,
that was a
2013.
Lifetime ago.
Yeah.
That was like, I wasn't still practicing law. Maybe I was. I don't know. But at least 4 jobs ago. 4 copywriting jobs ago. Yeah.
Yep.
So do you want to hear about any of my favorites?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you.
Oh, I should let you be in charge. You drive this train.
I will do the job of hosting. How about that? So you did share. I just, for the record, the first list you sent me was not like so common. Words and Writing, Comedians and Jokes, Glengarry, Glen Ross, Ecstasy the Band, and Back to the Future.
Right.
So other than writing has been pretty well covered because I do interview a lot of authors.
How dare you?
But all of those, I know.
That's
How
fair.
dare there constantly be authors with books to promote who also have favorite things they want to talk about. But then you're like, okay, in addition to boring things like Star Wars and Ghostbusters, you've got Jeeves and Wooster, the adult short stories of Roald Dahl, bands with letters for names, English madrigals, the last 10 minutes of Glengarry, Glen Ross, and really clever comedians.
Can I ask you, have you seen Glengarry, Glen Ross? Like, are you familiar with the film?
I think Glengarry, Glen Ross is the, it's like Always Be Selling and Shut Up and Drink the Coffee, right? Like they're angry and they're in a bullpen.
Both completely wrong.
No, that's not it?
Well, I mean, you were close, but everybody listening is laughing now. Because there is
Always Be Closing?
Always Be Closing. Okay. Excellent. And put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers. But yes. No, you're familiar enough to make everybody who loves this film cringe. And that was excellent. But wait, have you seen it? Or you just my voice just cracked. I got so excited.
I don't know if I've seen it or if I just know it from movie podcasts and Tumblr.
Wow. Memes. Okay. Then we're here now. This is it. This is the moment.
Okay.
Glengarry, Glen Ross is originally a play by David Mamet.
Yes.
It was successful as a play and mounted, I believe, originally both in London and New York. I think first one, then the other. And it was then fairly quickly adapted into a film. which David Mamet then wrote the screenplay for. And the original play, the play is just 2 acts, 3 scenes per act, 2 locations. The movie is essentially those same 2 locations with others sprinkled in. He fleshed it out, added much more dialogue, more characters, and famously added Alec Baldwin's character, who is a representative of the head office that these salesmen work for, who is sent to their office one night to give them a very abusive motivational talk. And that's the
Glengarry, Glen Ross?
No. And here's the I hate the title.
It's
the
so
title,
hard to say.
It is. I yes.
Glengarry, Glen
Ross. And Glen so
Ross.
it's one Glengarry is one word. And then Glengarry and then Glen Ross, 2 words, and they refer to 2 different land. So the salesmen are in the business of selling land, mainly in Florida and Arizona, basically just crappy land that they're selling to unsuspecting.
Deserts.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a boiler room operation of selling land, and that's just not worth what they're claiming it is. And Glengarry Farms is one of the parcels or one of the sets of land that they used to sell, and that's referred to at one point. And then, or Glen Ross Farms, and then Glengarry. Glengarry is the new set of leads that they got. I literally watched this movie again 2 days ago, and I'm confused. But the new leads, the Glengarry leads, is what the movie is really all about. They're the new hot leads, the people who might be interested in purchasing land, and the salesmen all want to get their hands on these leads, but they're not allowed because they're not good enough. So those leads will only go to like to closers, right? And these guys are not. But so I hate the title of this movie, and if I ever met David Mamet, and David, if you're listening, please email me. And explain to me why you couldn't have named this your play, anything else than Glengarry, Glen Ross, right? Or those are right, or the joke among the actors, I understand, was that they used to refer to it as death of a fucking salesman because there is so much cursing in this movie. I once brought the DVD with me to work when I was working on a weekend and I figured, you know what, I'll keep this on. I was really just at the office on call more than anything, and I figured, I'll just have this play in the background, and I must have forgotten how much cursing is, and I didn't have headphones on, and just like within the first 30 seconds I realized, oh, nope, can't play this at work.
Not even on a weekend.
No. And no, or at night. But it is. I want you to watch this movie tonight. Oh, and it just hit a streaming service. Like with most movies, they come and go off streaming services. And I of course I have the DVD, which I didn't buy recently, but and I burned it or I ripped it and it's on my computer, so it goes where I go for the most part. So I can always just fire up Glengarry, Glen Ross. But I think it's on Hulu. I think. So it is so wonderful, and it's
a really
nobody
incredible
talks.
Cast.
The cast is phenomenal, and the one problematic thing about it, and this is beyond the scope of this podcast, I'm sure, but what's his name? Kevin Spacey plays a major role. And I love this movie, and as it happens, one of my other favorite movies is The Usual Suspects, also starring Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey in recent years has become problematic, and it always raises the question, well, what do you do when you love something that involves or was produced by someone who
we later find out is trash,
right?
We would not have in our living rooms.
Allegedly trash, right? I mean, I don't we're talking
You
about
were
a lot
an
of different
attorney.
people.
Use the word allegedly.
No,
That's
but I'm
fine.
saying,
Yeah.
I'm saying we don't.
Yeah.
Right now we're talking about Kevin Spacey, but it could be anybody. It could be Michael Jackson. It could be, what do you do? And do you have a moral obligation to not watch a movie with Kevin Spacey? Do you have an obligation one way or the other to not listen to Michael Jackson's music? And I'm of the mind that no, that it's out there. You're not sending money to this person. You're first of all, Kevin Spacey's not getting any more money from Glengarry, Glen Ross. That's just not the way it works. But regardless, there's something out there. I don't think a consumer needs to deprive themselves of the joy of consuming, product. You don't have to. I'm not going to deny myself the sheer joy of watching Glengarry, Glen Ross, once a week or whatever it is, because Kevin Spacey might be, on our shit list right now. It's it's for me. It's for me, and I love this movie. I'm going to watch it. But as it happens, two of my favorite movies star Kevin Spacey. He's not one of my favorite actors, as it happens, but he is in two of my favorite films.
He's cast in two of your favorite.
Yeah. And I like him very much, but I'm not going to go so far as to recommend Kevin Spacey to anybody on this podcast. But as it happens, he's in this film. Jack Lemmon, Al Pacino,
Alan Arkin,
who is
Ed
amazing.
Harris,
Ed Harris.
Jonathan Pryce.
Every person in this movie is fantastic. There's one woman, but she's just sort of in the background. It's very much a man movie. It is angry, frustrated, cursing men.
Yeah,
but,
1992.
Yeah, it is, and it stands the. I was gonna say it stands the test of time, but it's very dated, in that it's men selling land by cold calling prospects. I mean, this is very much and the play actually took place in the early 80s, I believe. So they needed to even move up the timing when they filmed it. So there's a lot of phone calls. There are pay phones in the movie. It's just it's very much a product of its time, but the characterizations and the frustrations and the motivations are timeless. Basically just people having a really shitty 2 days, partly of their own making.
And then, but specifically, you love the last 10 minutes.
Yes.
We can firmly go into the spoiler zone. This movie is
okay. Yes, it's
92,
right.
2002.
So
it's almost
it's
30 years.
30 years, right? If you haven't seen it,
that's impossible because I graduated high school in 1995, which was no more than 15 years ago.
Yeah,
so
clearly.
How 1992 was 30 years ago, I'm having trouble with the math.
Yeah, the math doesn't line up. But let's not worry about that right now. Yeah. The main conflict of the movie is that these salesmen are having these new leads sort of dangled before them, and they're all having a hard time making sales and closing sales, and they're all afraid that they're going to lose their job. Ed Harris's character is probably the angriest of all of them, and he essentially decides that he and one of the other salesmen should burglarize their office and steal these new leads and make it look like a random burglary. Right. And they're going to take these new leads and they're going to sell them to a competitor who will then also hire them. So there's a bit of a twist in the movie because you see and hear Ed Harris's character, Dave Moss, enlisting Alan Arkin's character, George, to go in with him on this. And that's one of the major scenes. And it's one of the three scenes of Act One of the play, essentially their conversation in which Dave convinces or tries to convince George to be his partner in this burglary. And the second half of the play is the following morning when it becomes apparent that the office has been burglarized and the leads have been stolen. So now it's a mystery who did it, because you know that the only thing you do know is that Ed Harris's character didn't do it, but you don't know who did it. And you have a lot of reason to suspect that Alan Arkin's character didn't do it. Throughout the movie, Jack Lemmon's character, Shelley the Machine Levine, is very, very dismissive and abusive of Kevin Spacey's character, who is the office manager. And this is just an incredible performance by Jack Lemmon. It's just you watch this and you can't believe that any of these men are acting.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is beyond acting. It's like the way you felt watching Heath Ledger play the Joker. Like you there's a moment when everybody else feels like an actor, but they're acting with the Joker. Mm-hmm. Every actor, every person in Glengarry Glen Ross is a real person. You forget that you know these people from other movies. They mm-hmm. are their characters, and it's completely immersive. And there's a moment at the very end of the movie, in essentially the last 10 minutes, and it may be even later than that, when Jack Lemmon has just sort of berated Kevin Spacey's character, and he's just given him shit for ruining Al Pacino's sale. And he says, he has this throwaway line. He says, you should know if you're going to make something up, you'd better be sure that it helps. And Kevin Spacey is just kind of not even listening mm-hmm. to Jack Lemmon. He's kind of just looking off to the side. And then in this incredible moment of acting, he just refocuses his eyes. He just looks sort of from the floor to Jack Lemmon, who's in the distance, and he's kind of like looking right past the viewer. Mm-hmm. And you see it click in his mind. He realizes that Jack Lemmon's character, that Shelley just said the wrong thing and revealed all. And it all falls into place into Kevin Spacey's character's mind. And he realizes that the only way Jack Lemmon's character would know that Kevin Spacey's character had made something up was if he had robbed the office. Oh. And he just looks up and he says, "How do you know I made it up?" And then there's this immediate switch in Jack Lemmon's character's whole demeanor, and he gets completely flustered and says, what are you talking about?" And Kevin Spacey very slowly and very deliberately says, "How do you know I made it up?" Mm. And then he spells out exactly for Shelley where all the pieces fit and explains exactly why the only way Shelley would know that he had just made something up was if he had been in the office last night robbing the place. And it just turns the entire movie on its head. And it's everything just it's mystery solved. It gives me chills every time. And even in the play, a few years ago, I picked up a copy of the play as a book, and I keep it in my bedroom, and I will read it just every so often. If I'm not watching the movie, I'm reading the play, and that moment still gets me. It clearly doesn't have the same effect as just words on a page, right, as watching Kevin Spacey deliver these lines, and Jack Lemmon. But in a movie that's just an hour and a half or 2 hours of just phenomenal performances, this moment is just the top of the mountain. And I sometimes this is bizarre, but sometimes I will just watch those just 10 minutes. Scene. Yeah, I will just watch the end of that movie.
I don't think that's so weird.
Good. And also, are you familiar with Ghostbusters? And we're back. Should we tell people about Ronnie now?
We will. But before we get there,
yes,
I would like to time travel. What was your first interaction with this movie or play? Did you see it in the theater?
I don't remember. I was trying
It just always was.
But I think it wasn't, because when you reminded me just now of when it came out, I definitely did not see it then. What did you say? 1992?
92.
I had just begun college, and I don't remember. I have no idea. And I also don't know why I would have seen it. It doesn't seem like the kind of movie that I would have been interested in for a long time. It very well might have been a recommendation from a friend. I know that I probably had no idea who David Mamet was. And I had never read any of his other plays. I recently, probably at the beginning of the pandemic, read all of his plays.
Okay.
Or at least a lot of them. I went to the library and grabbed everything I could. I'm sorry, David, I got them at the library.
Authors, from what I see on TikTok,
I know they
love libraries.
Yes. No, libraries are terrific. But so David Mamet's not making any money off of me. But the only other movie of his that I've seen, I think, is The Spanish Prisoner. Although I believe he wrote a movie that most people don't know that he wrote, except I don't remember what it was. So you're looking it up now? I can hear you typing.
Yep. The Untouchables, The Postman Rings Twice.
Okay.
Wag the Dog, Hannibal.
Oh, okay. So David Mamet, very accomplished writer, playwright, screenwriter, and but I did not see it when it first came out, and I don't think I ever saw it in the theater, and so I don't know. I do not know, and it would be nice. It would be sort of fun for me to remember, or maybe have my memory jogged, and know why I first saw it. But I think I loved it as soon as I saw it. It was unlike it still is unlike almost any other movie out there. Everybody talks about how it's all dialogue. It's just all talking, and it's very in that regard, it's very different from most movies today, at least that are wildly popular. There's no special effects. It's guys talking. It's
not even like multiple set pieces.
Right. It takes place in a Chinese restaurant, in an office, and again, a lot of it on payphones. But it's and the dialogue, as much as David Mamet is known for his dialogue, the dialogue is not realistic. People don't talk the way David Mamet characters talk, but it's so much fun to watch them and listen to them talk the way they do, that it doesn't matter. You don't. I mean, I get, we watch movies all the time.
Sorkin and
right.
Sherman Palladino.
Right.
You don't always want to watch shows with people talking the way you talk. Sometimes you want to watch elevated wordplay and like highly structured, like iambic pentameter. You want to watch things with rhythm and vocabulary that you don't grasp in everyday life.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of crosstalk, especially in scenes with Ed Harris and Alan Arkin. There's a terrific scene with them at a donut shop, in a coffee shop. Alan Arkin, who is probably he's very much a secondary character. He steals this scene by the way, like his speech pattern steals the scene. The way he keeps trying to, I guess, get a word in edgewise with Ed Harris, but he doesn't really have anything to say. So he's just sort of delivering these half lines or these single words at a time. And it's very well done and very specialized. It's I think that's not the word I would have chosen, but it's very specialized dialogue and it's very, virtuosic.
It's precise.
It is.
David Mamet is not gonna, I think, allow people to riff on his words.
Right. I don't think there was much improvising. Going on. It's very, very strict, but it's because it serves a purpose. And you can't break, like each character is very, very well defined, and the way they talk and what they're talking about and their motivations. And I think you can't stray far from that. And also it's clear if you read the play that it's, he clearly took what he had written, translated it, and then fleshed it out with more of the same. Fortunately, it's so good that more of the same is, more of a good thing.
Did you know that he wrote a Torah commentary with Rabbi Kushner
I did not.
called The Wicked Son?
I did not. Maybe I did, but like so many things that we're touching upon, I've forgotten.
Right. So Ronnie, who we have mentioned, who people who listen to the podcast regularly have heard about because he accompanied me on many of the shenanigans of having cancer. He was often along for the ride.
I knew that. Yes.
He was my original hospital husband, which is people that took me to the hospital. Any man who went with me to the hospital was immediately turned into my husband by the nurses.
Okay.
And any woman who took me to the hospital was not immediately upgraded to wife. So it was just funny.
Interesting.
So I made people enamel pens that said today's hospital husband so that they could claim the role that they were
I know that while this was nothing that Ronnie would ever want to do, I know that it was something that he was proud to be able to do and glad to be able to do for you, even if he, nobody wants to have to do that.
Right.
You probably can't do better than Ronnie, which is not to disparage any of your other husbands or hospital sisters or what have you, but
my hospital husbands and sister wives.
Right. So I know Ronnie and I went to college together, and I've known Ronnie for 27 years, and I may officially make this the last time that I say this because it's getting a bit old, but Ronnie and I did not like each other when we first met. And we reminisce about this. And I think as the years have gone by, especially the most recent years, we've, I think, both gotten a little tired of remembering that we didn't like each other when we first met. And we've been very much moving the emphasis from that mutual dislike to how good we are, how good friends we are. How do I want to say that? What good friends we are now.
Yes.
And Ronnie is, and this may be where Ronnie finds out about this, but Ronnie is one of my best friends. Ronnie would be anyone's best friend. And the problem was, when we first met, he was probably the best friend of the guy that I wanted to be my best friend. So we were essentially competing for the attentions of a mutual friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you now ousted the middle guy, and now you're just best friends with each other?
We're all friends. But
okay.
Ronnie and I probably do keep in touch more, but the three of us are all very good friends. And in fact, the three of us got together last summer with two other friends, two female friends of ours. 5 of us got together, not this past summer, but the summer before. They all came out to Long Island, where I am. It was very convenient for me. Not so much for them, but who cares?
Well, you are the person who lives on an island.
Right, I live on an island of 6 million, but still. We all got an Airbnb.
Yes.
And Ronnie's brother happened to be in the neighborhood, so it worked out very well for Ronnie. Ronnie got to see friends and family, and we all got to see Ronnie. And yes, that mutual friend, we've all been friends for 27 years since we started college. And Ronnie and our friend Brad were 2 of my first friends in college, and I don't remember when the shift took place, because again, we're not focusing on that.
You don't focus on that. I have heard stories of a pun competition, like a pun off maybe. And I don't know if that might just be the story of your friendship. Is there's a lot of puns, there's a lot of wordplay.
There's a lot of wordplay, and Ronnie and I make a lot of puns, a lot of wordplay in our emails and our chats and texts. And Ronnie calls me every year on my birthday.
Yes.
He's the only person besides my mom.
Yes.
Ronnie does that. He's a caller.
He is a caller.
And I think this year was
Yeah,
he did. He's excellent at remembering birthdays, and I think this year might be the first time I didn't let it go to voicemail. Because I felt he'd finally earned it. He'd been calling me so many years, and I'd been just sort of, pretending not to be near my phone for so long. This podcast might be the end of our friendship, as it turns out.
Probably.
But we had a good run, Ronnie. We had a really good run.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Ronnie, I Ronnie is great. And at some point, Ronnie became someone that I would send every new thing that I've written to. He is one of my first readers, and he's an excellent first reader.
Yeah.
And in fact, just to loop back a little bit, Ronnie at first didn't want to, but then realized he had to point out a problem with an earlier version of Otter Space, that there was something a bit sensitive. That the details aren't important, but he was on the fence about whether to bring it up or not, and I'm glad he did, because it's a much better book for not just blowing past it, but sort of hanging a lantern or putting a hat on this topic. And that's the only thing that might be considered, a one of those more serious things. But it's still, it doesn't elevate it to YA territory, but there's a little bit of a life/history lesson that it's not dwelt upon, but it is touched upon. And it was Ronnie and another one of our friends from that group of 5 who really made me think about it. And it was a little eye-opening, because I was kind of treating something a little flippantly, and I was glad that they didn't take offense, but they said, "Hey, someone could." And, maybe don't present it this way. And it was fairly easy. Not that I wouldn't have done it if it weren't easy, but it was the sort of the solution presented itself pretty readily. Take this and turn it into a learning moment. And I still am really grateful that he didn't not say anything for fear of, like bugging me. I mean, he probably remembered, hey, this guy used to hate me. So,
right.
What's the worst that could happen now?
It's always a risk.
Yeah, we're not. You're right. I don't think we're going to move it. We're not going to move backward. But
no, I don't think
so Ronnie, great guy. That's,
yes.
I strongly recommend Ronnie to everyone. So Glengarry, Glen Ross, and then call Ronnie at 1-888 Ronnie.
1-888. It's my birthday.
Yes.
He will always call on your birthday. Yes.
I'd love to tell something embarrassing about Ronnie, but I don't know anything embarrassing about Ronnie. I don't know that he's ever shared anything embarrassing about him. So he must have, but I probably filter that out, and I just think of him in only glowing terms.
Yeah. I think the other thing to wrap it up that I'm curious about, and we're going to hold some, you're going to come back. Already decided.
Yeah.
Bands with letters for names, specifically REM, Ecstasy, and TMGB. Wait.
They Might Be Giants.
Okay. Yes.
Right. So one, that's a little bit of a cheat, because we call them TMBG, but really it's They Might Be Giants.
Yes.
So, but you the rule of threes, you got to have a, you gotta have a third. But I don't specifically like bands with names that are letters. It just happens that 3 of my favorite bands, and it has been this way for a long time, are REM, XTC, and They Might Be Giants. And again, nobody needs me to tell them about any of these bands. If you're going to go discover REM because of me telling you, then there's a problem. That said, if you are not familiar with REM, XTC, or They Might Be Giants, please do check them out. And I will say this.
Very much realizing XTC is not who I thought. Who was the female hip-hop band I thought it was?
The female hip-hop at TLC?
TLC.
Okay. I'm a fan of TLC, but not in the way of...
Now, I just want you to go into my brain and replace Ecstasy with TLC and see what an interesting mix of music it was when it was REM, TLC, and They Might Be Giants as your top 3 bands, based on everything we knew already about Mammoth and just how confused I was.
Yeah, which is not to say that we don't sometimes, ask Alexa to play TLC,
Right.
which I might actually just have inadvertently done by saying that. Fortunately, I'm far enough away from the speaker that you won't hear them. But no, XTC was a band from the late 70s, well into the early 90s, which started out as 5 guys and gradually was whittled down to 2. Most people, if they know anything about XTC, know the songs Making Plans for Nigel, which was probably their biggest hit, although I don't think it was their best song, and or Dear God, or The Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead, or The Mayor of Simpleton. Okay, Leah, you have a lot of work to do.
I have...
You might need to take tomorrow off from work. And
just like, I'm looking... Okay, here's Making Plans for Nigel.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So in 2016, it ranked 143 on Pitchfork's list of the 200 best songs of the 1970s. So did it have maybe a second?
I don't know. I don't know that XTC had a resurgence. They've pretty much been defunct since I want to say very early 2000s.
Yeah.
And they're not coming back. Again, by the end, it was just 2 of them, and I'm pretty sure that the 2 of them don't speak anymore. But the engine behind XTC was always a man named Andy Partridge, who I believe turns 70. In fact, there was just an article in The Guardian, I think it was, an interview with him, sort of catching up with him and what he's been up to.
November 11th is his birthday. He'll be 69.
Oh, okay. So he will be 70 next year.
He'll be 70 next year.
All right. So
Yep.
Andy Partridge is the main songwriter and the lead singer, and he is just a gift. And he's got some. I don't know. There was something about his politics a few years ago that got him into a little bit of trouble, and I've kind of turned a blind eye, deaf ear to what his politics are. I don't know for certain that they're not in line with mine, and I don't want to know. I confess to being willfully ignorant because I simply do not want to have to be unhappy with the man I think is the greatest songwriter that we've ever had, at least the greatest modern day English songwriter. I don't know many others, or in other languages. But
and he has synesthesia, which is always interesting to talk to people about.
Yes, I can't speak to his synesthesia. It sounds kind of purple to me, but Ronnie, you'll appreciate that. So,
oh man,
yeah.
I missed the drum. Wait. It sounds wait.
You want me to do it again?
Where is it?
Okay.
I gotta find it.
Tell me when it's queued up, and I'll
ready.
redo it. Okay. I can't speak to Andy Partridge's synesthesia. It all sounds purple to me. Okay. Yeah.
That was
yeah.
A little bit of a lag.
a little bit of a lag. Yeah.
Doesn't need a 1 second.
Yeah,
lag
we could have
on
heard.
the front of the...
We could have heard all of Making
Right.
Plans for Nigel in
Yes.
that time. Yeah, but what are we talking about? Purple? I like purple. Do you guys know about purple? It's
Big
the
fan
color?
of purple.
Yeah,
Big fan of purple.
good.
Liked
Yeah,
it even before
purple's-
I went to Northwestern, but liked it more
Yeah.
after.
It's a charming color. It's deep, deep purple. Yeah. So Andy Partridge, XTC, love them. Really sophisticated songwriting, and I think a few years ago I started making a list of what I thought were the best pop or rock lyrics, song lyrics, and I came up with such gems as like "Da Do Do Do" by The Police,
Da da
and
da.
"Da Da Da Da," and but I think the first prize goes to Andy Partridge for a lyric in the song "The Man Who Murdered Love," which might have been on their last album, either their last or their second to last. And the line is, it's the middle of the song. In the middle of the song, right about at the instrumental break, he sings, it's the middle of the song. Genius. Songwriting genius. And it's subtle. It's not easy to hear.
Yeah.
And once I realized that that's what he was saying, that took it to David Mametian proportions. David Mametian levels.
When we were kids, our grandparents retired to Texas, so we would drive from Indiana to Texas to see them.
Just to clarify, not our grandparents, yours and mine, Leah. We don't have any grandparents in common.
Not that we know of.
Correct.
So
you and somebody else used to drive to Texas to see your grandparents.
The Joneses would drive to Texas.
Yes. Was everybody behind you trying to keep up with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially in the years when we drove a hearse to Texas.
Really?
Yes.
You should have a podcast.
It should. And so we're looking at the atlas because it was map, paper atlas.
Right.
How you drove cross country at the time. And we kept joking that we were about to get to the staple. We're going to get to the staple in the map. And when we got there, we passed a ranch whose gate looked like a staple.
That's fantastic.
It was so, we were like, we're at the staple, and we looked over and there was a gigantic staple in front of like a ranch. And
see, that's the sort of thing that you would do on purpose. Like if you knew that there was like if there was one atlas or one map that most people had, like the Rand McNally Road Atlas, and you saw that you had the property that was by the staple, I would have to do that.
Yeah.
Like there's almost no amount of money that I wouldn't spend. There's no such thing as too much money to spend on that joke.
Yeah. It's a great joke. And it's been, well, I don't know how many years. Because, so 30 years ago, I was 15. So, oh my God, probably like 35 years ago.
Wow.
It's painful.
Wow. The staple.
It was really, and that to me is at the level of, it's the middle of the song.
Right.
It's
yeah.
where
that's
the
great.
staple in the atlas, and you look up and you see a literal giant stapler, like it's
at the Swing Line Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you pressed button on patronizing laughter. Hit that clip. Hit that clip. He's telling a joke here. Yeah, that one.
Just keeps going.
Perfect.
It goes too long. Like the drum joke starts too late, and the laughing
right.
goes
It just
too
goes
long.
too long. Yeah. Did you pay for these sound clips?
They came with it. I pay for Riverside as a service, and these are the I feel like these are bonuses.
Gotcha.
Well,
Yes.
Matthew, this has been fun.
This has been a laugh riot. No, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I look forward to recording our next episode tomorrow.
Yeah.
And our third one tomorrow afternoon.
Great. In between, I will go vote. I tried to vote before.
Oh, that's a good plan.
I did try to vote.
Try
this
harder.
Afternoon. I will. I got there, and it was an hour wait for early voting.
That's interesting. I was just talking to someone before this session about voting and waiting on lines, and I don't think in all my years of voting. Let's see. I'm again. I said I'm in my late 40s, so I've been voting for like 2 or 3 years, and in all my years of voting, I don't remember ever having to wait. And on election day, maybe I've just gotten very lucky, or I lived in very efficient places. But I know that, and I know of course, waiting in lines and especially in rural places and other places around the country can be a significant problem, and is a significant problem. And I realize that this is maybe just where I've lived on Long Island, in New Jersey, in Boston. But I've never had to wait. If there's ever been a wait, it was just a couple of people, and I've never felt like it was a chore, or I was going to be here for a long time, and I had to make a decision about, is this how I wanted to spend my time? And only recently have I been thinking about that as a problem for people. Like, you have to wait online an hour. That's an hour out of your day, and a lot of people don't have an hour to just stand there waiting to do something that takes 30 seconds. As important as it is, there's an analysis you have to do,
Yeah.
and I've never factored that in. I've also always thought of it as something that's so important that it doesn't matter. If I have to wait, I'm going to wait.
Yeah, I agree. If I have to wait, I'm going to wait. It's a beautiful sunny day in Chicago today, which is great. It's great weather for voting, right? It's great weather to get out of the house. And I went to an early voting site, and I was truly, everybody who got there was like, whoa, whoa.
Right.
And so I can just get up early on Tuesday and go across the street to my precinct and just vote.
Gotcha.
Be in and out in 15 minutes.
Right.
But it's also the first time I've voted since I have not, I can no longer stand for an hour.
Gotcha. Right.
Like as I regain my strength after chemotherapy, like I can't actually stand in line for an hour. And I had my cane, but I had like Birkenstocks on, and I just like didn't think through.
Right.
Like, do I have the best shoes on? Do I have like a little stool with me? Like, I didn't think through what I needed to have with me to safely wait in line for an hour.
Sure. I think at this point we will wind up voting on Tuesday because I believe we're going to vote at our children's school, and we're going in for parent-teacher conferences. I mean, this is all designed this way.
Yep.
School's out. Kids will be with us. We're going in for 2 conferences. We vote there. It's all actually very convenient.
Yeah.
I don't imagine that we're going to have to wait, but if we do, we do. We have meant to vote early, but we kept not voting early. But that runs out on Tuesday anyway. So we by Tuesday we will have voted.
Yeah. The good news is I did make my cheat sheet because we have to vote for judge retention in Chicago, and it's very confusing.
Sure.
And in general, retain them except for these 5, but it's 5 out of 40, so you gotta find their names.
Wow. Yeah, and we don't have that here in New York. At least I don't believe we do.
Yeah.
Caller, am I correct? No. So no, it's a little simpler, but I've never needed to really prepare much in advance. I'm pretty much an across the board in a straight line voter.
Yeah. I am too. The things I want to understand are there's like an amendment on the ballot, like the things that are always written to make you vote the opposite way that you believe.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure I knew the right, the way to vote and correctly on those.
Yes, that's important, and that's not enough people take that time, and that's exactly as you say. There's a way to word things so that it takes advantage of the fact that people are not preparing in advance, and back of the ballot may not even. Like we were, my wife and I were just talking that there is one proposition on our ballot that we will need to remember to turn the piece of paper over for.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work. I mean, imagine having to wait in line and turn your piece of paper over.
Right.
Come on. It is a lot. I could be doing other things. I could be watching Glengarry, Glen Ross, or
I know,
listening to TLC.
So Matthew David Brozik, the novel is Otter Space. It's available now on Amazon in print or digital. We want people to get print to see those nice chapter headings.
That's right.
Do you want people to keep up with you online? How do you want people to know about you in the future?
I haven't been that. I don't know.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I don't have that much to say or report on a day-to-day basis that most people would be interested in. Maybe if this book blows up as one of the spaceships does, then I'll need to. The funny thing is, about 2 weeks ago, I had already shut down my personal Twitter account, not to make any statement. I just got tired of it.
Sure.
And then about 2 weeks ago, in preparation for the launch of this book, I set up a new Twitter account but I'm not even going to bother to tell you the handle because I literally have not posted one thing on it. So there's no reason to follow me in any meaningful way. I post on Facebook, but I'm not doing anything on other social media. No Insta, no TikTok. Because I'm not that interesting if you don't know me. I mean, if you'd like to know more, you can always visit imdb.name and there's a link to send me an email. We can be email friends.
And then they can become your birthday friend. Right.
And my phone number is 516. No, that's all you're getting. That's all you already know I live on Long Island, so I got that Tony 516 area code.
Very fancy. Very fancy.
Yeah.
Well, my cat Cowboy has jumped on to my computer to tell me it's, I believe, dinner time or something with the time change. But Matthew, this has been a delight. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.